Formula One loves a good statistic. Pole positions, fastest laps, championship points, and sometimes slightly more creative achievements. You know the ones. Most improved eyebrow raise in Sector 2. Best vibes after finishing P5. Strongest energy throughout the weekend. But seriously, it does raise an interesting question. What happens when we strip all that away? And just look at the records that actually matter. Because when you do, a very different picture starts to emerge. Quick koala disclaimer. This episode is all about stats, history, and a bit of perspective. It's not about tearing anyone down. It's about highlighting achievements that sometimes miss the spotlight. As always, it's opinion, it's analysis, and it's all part of the fun of following Formula One. Now, to be fair, every driver in Formula One is exceptional. You don't get here without talent. But not all records are created equal, and not all narratives tell the full story. While the ever-desperate McLando PR department is busy diving deep into the Mariana Trench of trivial achievements to try and prop up the increasingly fragile narrative that their chosen one is a worthy champion, spoiler, he's not, let's take a little moment to appreciate some real milestones and achievements. You know, the kind that don't need a microscope, soft lighting, a dramatic piano track, or a whole lot of wishful thinking. Spoiler again, none of them belong to Lando. Zandvoort 2025. Oscar Quokka casually strolls in and takes a grand slam. Pole, win, fastest lap, led every lap. Not just McLando's first since Mika Hakkinen in 1998, 27 years ago. Not just the first Australian since Sir Jack Brabham in 1966, but also something only 27 drivers in F1 history have ever done. Incidentally, Lando is not one of them. That makes it a far more exclusive club than the number of people who have won a World Driver Championship. But don't worry, McLando PR will still tell you Lando looked racy on his way to a P2 somewhere once. Baku 2025. Oscar's run of 44 consecutive race finishes finally came to an end. A run that equals Max Verstappen's and was only 4 shy of Lewis's all-time record of 48. Not bad for a guy in year 3 of his career. Also not bad for someone who allegedly crumbles under pressure, according to the same people who think DRS stands for Don't Rate Oscar. Oh, and next on the list, Daniel Ricciardo with 34. Yes, the same Daniel Ricciardo who scored McLando's first win in 9 years, when Lando was still out there earning his nickname Lando No Wins. The same Ricciardo whose domination by Lando is still used as Exhibit A in the great Lando defense. Incidentally, Lando Fansnake was also Danny's race engineer, and Danny also suffered the same strategy fails that Oscar is constantly subjected to. But remind me again, how many records does Lando hold? Or even how many lists he's near the top of? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Also, Oscar is quietly third on the all-time consecutive points finishes list. Again, feel free to point out where Lando sits on that list. I'll wait. As of the end of 2025, Oscar has 9 race wins, including multiple that required him to come from behind, because apparently he performs best during the exact part of the season he's supposed to crumble under pressure. And if you factor in wins that McLando intentionally stole from him to gift to Lando, he ranks in the top 20 of all time. Oscar also has 26 podiums, 6 pole positions, 9 fastest laps. Oscar's F1 rookie year achievements in 2023 include first rookie to lead a race in over 10 years at the Belgian GP, first rookie to qualify on the front row since 2010 at the Japanese GP, first rookie podium since 2017, also Japanese GP, and the only McLando driver to win anything that year, the Qatar Sprint, in a car that was a rolling back of the midfield participation trophy for most of the season. But apparently he drops off in the second half, right? Except that's when he started beating people with cars 2 tiers faster. Funny how that works. Now imagine what Oscar could have achieved if he actually had a supportive team instead of one that team ordered him behind his pay driver teammate at every opportunity. 2019 Formula Renault Euro Cup champion, 2020 FIA Formula 3 champion, rookie year. 2021 FIA Formula 2 champion, rookie year. Oscar remains the only driver in motorsport history to win all 3, let alone in consecutive rookie seasons. This is the kind of record you don't inflate. You marvel at it. And while we're on the topic of actual driver achievements, here's another one the PR department mysteriously forgets to mention whenever they're busy polishing up Lando's. He smiled in the cool-down room. What a hero moments. Oscar has now taken 5 of his 9 wins from non-pole starts. That means 55.56% of his victories come from not starting in P1, putting him just a whisper behind Michael Schumacher himself, who sits at 56.04%. A little further down, we find some other familiar names: Max at 47.06%, Lewis at 41.09%, and Lando, well, he's trying his best. He sits at 27.27%, which places him fourth lowest among all multi-race winners in history, tied with Felipe Massa and only just edging out George in last place. Turns out that to score wins from off the front row, you need to do something radical like pass other cars on track. Oscar excels at that, but Lando, bless him, would prefer to achieve his overtakes via pit windows, undercuts, and the occasional tell Oscar not to fight. And let's not make this hard for me radio moment. This is why the non-pole to win ratio is considered a clearer indicator of pure driver skill rather than machinery advantage. It shows who can race, not just who can set one good lap when given clean air. And of course, speaking of consistency, Oscar has now become only the fourth driver in the history of Formula One to complete every single lap of a season, joining Schumacher, Verstappen, and Hamilton. Yes, the three biggest names in modern F1. And since 2024 was the longest season ever, Oscar now holds the record for most laps completed in a single season in F1 history. But yes, please do go on about how he fades in the second half of the year. In 2025, Oscar also achieved the track record at Zandvoort and smashed the track record at Spa. He also finished with the closest gap to first the whole season in Hungary because he wasn't actually allowed to pass Lando, and we all remember the snake shenanigans that intentionally stole Oscar's win there. Lando does hold the race records for Qatar and yes, Monza, and oh yes, didn't we hear all about that one? But Oscar also holds the race record in Spain. Bet you didn't know about that, right? Neither did I until I started searching, because that little achievement went basically unnoticed. Oscar holds qualifying records at China, Zandvoort, Spa, and Qatar, smashing Lando's race record at the same circuit. Now remind me who is the better qualifier, because Oscar now holds more record qualifying times than Lando. And speaking of Qatar, did you know that Oscar is the only driver to ever win a sprint there? And remember that if the team had actually been fair in Qatar, rather than just fair to Lando, Oscar would not only be champion now, but would also have had most laps led and most wins. One team decision intentionally favouring Lando cost Oscar everything. Meanwhile, on the other side of the garage, Lando tops a very different list. Most positions lost from starting position, a record no one asked for, but hey, at least he's leading something. Lando also holds a rather impressive statistic: the most starts with a single team. 152, all with McLando. Sounds great, right? Loyalty, commitment, a modern F1 fairy tale. Or maybe not, because loyalty only really counts when it's tested, and Lando's never had to test it. Those early years, when results were thin and most non-paid drivers would have been quietly shown the door, Lando stayed put, comfortably. Helped along by the fact that he'd paid for the seat, so McLando had every financial incentive to keep him there. If Lando had ever turned down rival offers to stay with McLando, this stat would mean something, but he hasn't. He's never had another team seriously knocking, even heading into 2025. When his contract was almost up, Lando put out a few feelers to see if his value had risen. It hadn't. No nibbles, a couple of polite no thanks. So he re-signed with McLando on the same terms and the same money as before. Oscar, meanwhile, was already attracting interest. Real interest. Enough that McLando moved quickly to lock him down well before his contract was due for renewal. Not out of sentiment, but fear. Fear that if Oscar ever left, they wouldn't be able to control him, and with another team, he would become an even bigger threat to their Lando-era pipe dream. Oscar negotiated equal pay to Lando and reportedly conditions around no favoritism and no team orders. Clauses that have since been, let's say, creatively interpreted or perhaps ignored outright. And yet, despite the narrative, the not-so-subtle undermining, and the occasional suggestion that Oscar fades late in the season, team principals remain unconvinced because they can see what's actually happening. They know how much ground Oscar gives up for Lando and the team. They know how rarely he complains. And they know just how fast he is. Among team principals, Oscar ranks second only to Max on the who would you want in your car list. Lando, not even top 10. And no amount of narrative polishing will change that, because inside the paddock, people are watching the same race as we are. But they see the truth. And not the rosy, Lando the wonderful narrative that we are all force-fed. If McLando PR wants something to hype, maybe they should start here. But alas, these aren't approved narratives. So into the draw they go. Right underneath, Oscar beats Lando on merit again. So when McLando put out another fun fact graphic about Lando being the first driver to blink 23 times on lap 17, that's fine. Meanwhile, Oscar is out here collecting actual historical achievements like their Pokemon cards. So next time you see a graphic celebrating a very specific milestone, maybe take a second look, because while some stats are carefully curated, others speak for themselves. Which achievements do you think deserve more attention? And which ones might be doing a little bit of heavy lifting? I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation below. Or if you want to help shine a light on genuine achievements, consider contributing a cup of coffee. Because in Formula One, you can shape a narrative, but you can't fake a record. Oscar's whole 2025 season summed up in one image.